virtual volunteer committee. We have a virtual volunteer committee that we have formed that will be meeting monthly to oversee activities of Eco-Agric Uganda mushroom growing. And this one will also have quarterly monitoring, virtual monitoring, where we'll go to the different mushroom farmers to show what has been done. They are our ambassadors and will continue supporting us. And when is our first meeting? So you can volunteer virtually. You can volunteer through training. You can send us culture. You can send us whatever you can. You can come on site.
Sunday night, come check me out. Something fun like that.
Yay! Josephine taking over the Mycogeeky Monday. Please check her out. Don't miss. It's going to be fun.
Podcast. My Gigs Podcast.
Yeah, Mycogeeky.
Mycogeeky.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all good. But yeah, do it.
Josephine here taking up the Mycogeeky Podcast. Please check her out. So much fun. Don't miss African life and how she got into the mushroom growing. Please check her out Monday. Woo!
Great.
Correct?
Yes, I nailed the last name. I am so happy. All right, guys. Mycogeeky here. We're hanging out with Josephine. I just got to hang out with her for the first time at the Ohio Mushroom Festival. The Mush Fest was great. Her enthusiasm was amazing. She got to tell her story, and I said, all right, come on. We got to bring you on the podcast. We got to talk about what you're doing over in Uganda. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show, Josephine Nakakande.
I'm thrilled to bridge the fascinating. Oh,
You're good. Keep going. You can go. I can edit that out. Don't worry about
you
it.
can.
Yeah, go for it.
Yay! I'm thrilled to bridge the fungal gap between Africa and America. And Mycogeeky, thank you so much for having me so that I'm able to share my mushroom journey and mushroom enthusiasm with the world, most especially America.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here. We're just hanging out on my side porch today. We're going to just ask her a couple questions, get to know her, and let you guys get to know what she's all about over in Uganda. So first off, let me find this out. Can you share the story behind the founding of Eco-Agric in Uganda?
Yes, thank you so much for the wonderful question. And by the way, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. It is called Eco-Agric Uganda, and it is a short form for Environmental Conservation and Agriculture Enhancement Uganda, Eco-Agric Uganda. This is a community member-based organization established way back in 2007 and aims at sustainably improving livelihoods of critically vulnerable and absolutely poor people, most especially in Uganda. It operates in 3 districts of Uganda and targets people who we consider in the middle of nowhere. These are the single mothers, the widows, most especially the women, the children, and the girls. So we sustainably support them improve their living conditions through sustainable farming practices and what we do holistically to the whole household.
Awesome. So how did you decide to start this? Like, what was the inspiration?
Yes, this inspiration comes way back from my childhood. I'm a daughter to a teacher and a housewife. It is until when I went to high school that I realized that at home we were poor. Initially, we used to stay with our parents. I grew up with all my parents. Unfortunately, they are still alive. My father was a teacher and my mother was a housewife. However, my mother was so innovative that she got involved in farming as a source of income. She first practiced farming as a source of food for us at home, and later on went into farming as a source of income. She grew vegetables mostly, and I would like to tell you that we as children, we also participate in the growing. We fetched water during the dry season, and we participated as our mother took part in each and everything. So our mother grew vegetables, tomatoes, it was majorly tomatoes and cabbages that she sold for income. Now, when she sold them, she was able to buy chicken. When she bought chicken, she started selling eggs together with the vegetables, bought goats. And after that, the goats didn't do well, but later on, the goats were sold off, plus the vegetables and the eggs, and then she bought cows. Now, as she saved all that money, she would also get money to supplement our father's income. My mother stopped in senior four and started working, and that is when she got married to our father. So she didn't have any profession. So she settled down to do farming as a source of income. So when I went to high school, my parents had given me almost everything. They had paid the school fees. They had given me whatever they thought was fit for me. However, they forgot to give me two things: a pair of sandals, the sandals we used to go to have a shower, and a towel. So off I went to school. By the way, that was my very first time to leave my parents when I was going to high school. So when I reached school, I went to have a shower barefooted. I didn't have a towel. After having a shower, and by the way, they had bought to me new clothes. I was very happy and excited. I had new clothes. I had two new dresses. I had a uniform. Things I didn't have. So when I went to school, I was bullied. I was teased. That was my first worst moment in life. Because at home, I'm the first girl. My father loved me so much. I'm the second born, still the first girl. So my father loved me so much. So when I went to school, the girls started bullying me, teasing me. It was not worth for me to go and have a shower. I resorted to having the shower earlier. The dormitories would be closed. I resorted to having the shower when everyone has finished. The matron would be harsh on me because I was late. So it was a hard moment. I rushed home. When I went back home, my parents didn't listen because I had never been out of home, so they thought I was just being naughty. Maybe I didn't want the school. So I reached home at night, and in the morning they sent me back. They didn't even listen to my problem. So I started planning to run away from school. I started planning running away from school because I couldn't stay without showering. That is one. Two, showering was the worst moment, and everyone was pointing fingers at me. People were bullying me. So at that moment, I decided no, as I need to run away from school. As I tried to run away from school, some two girls came and handed over. One gave me a pair of sandals. They were pink. I remember them. And another one gave me an old towel. It was light blue. I remember. That scene is still fresh in my mind. So at that time, I got used. And I think that's why I didn't perform well to go to the university. But fortunately, I went and studied veterinary. And when I studied veterinary, that was the beginning of getting the money. I got the money. I treated people's animals. I treated cats. I treated dogs. I was the hot cake, the first female girl to be treating animals. I got the money. And when I got the money, whenever I would go to treat animals, it was only men who would take me to treat their animals, which really was a surprise to me because at home, the cows, the goats, and everything belonged to my mom. So I started, whenever I would go to treat people's animals, I started thinking and telling them my story. Of course, everyone would come around to see the girl who is treating animals, which was awkward. So I started working. I started working as a freelancer veterinarian. Then I got employed by the government of Uganda. I started working. And then I felt it important to share my story, use my mother's story to share with other women. Because, yes, my mother was not formally employed, but she would get her money. And that money would really supplement our father's income. So that is when I started working with women to support them, improve their living conditions, to share with them, to support women also be like my mom. And my colleagues also have their own stories. So that is when we came together, four of us, to form what was known as Environmental Conservation and Agriculture Enhancement Uganda. It started as a result of sharing with my colleagues what I was seeing. Actually, this was formed together with my husband. I used to share with him what my mother had done vis-a-vis what I see in the field, what other women are going through. It was totally different. So that is when I started sharing my story. I was that proud girl. I used to ride a motorcycle to go to the field. I was very proud. And I tried to pass over the information of how my mother supported my father or supplemented my father's income or got her own income to an extent that she could even milk a cow and sell her own milk. So Eco-Agric Uganda was formed as a way of the four of us. We are four: me, Josephine Nakakande, Dr. Kajura Charles, Mr. Mwau Robert, Mr. Chintu Hapat, and by the way, I'm the only lady there. I'm the only lady. So we formed it because all of us were products of agriculture as a source of income, and all of us were agriculturalists. All of us have a veterinary and agriculture background, so we came out to share to the community how best we can do it. By the time Eco-Agric Uganda was formed, I was a civil servant, but I decided to leave so as to be impactful. By the time I left, I had done some things. I had established I had some houses, I had some things, and yes, we formed Eco-Agric Uganda so as to support those people, improve their living conditions through sustainable farming practices. Yeah, the story is quite long. I've tried to compress it.
That's great. So, I mean, I just love hearing that you took the experience that you gained from watching your mom have this empowered sort of life, and how it augmented your household income, and all that, and probably not the norm, right? Like, she was out of the ordinary. She was a special woman, and you honored her by then finding other people to get together and say, we can teach, we can empower people to have that same outcome. Like, let's bring people up. I think that's really great.
And more to that, my mother brought us up telling us we should always be appreciative. So when I got the money after working as a veterinarian and I got the money, I felt it important to appreciate the other two girls that saved me from running out of school. Because all the time I would get money, something would come and haunt me. You would never get this money if it were not for those two girls. You would never get this money if it were not for those two girls. I really don't know why I didn't get the pictures of those girls. I could not remember them. I needed to thank them. So that is why I felt if I knew those girls, I would have taken gifts and gifts to them, but I didn't know them. As a way of appreciating those two girls, that is why I came out to support other girls who could be going through the same situation like me through the girls scholarship scheme and through the education scheme. As I've told you, for me, I never realized that we were poor. The book would be cut into two. For example, you have one full book like this, yes, and then my mother would fold it like this, cut it into two, so that this upper part is one subject and another part is another subject. Sometimes the book would not be enough when you go to upper classes. You write at the end, at the beginning, and in the middle. Having lunch was not easy. Going to look for fruits. I remember when I was in P4 at Dohaga Boys Primary School, one of our classmates was struck by electricity as he looked for mangoes in a mango tree. That is why I feel it important to support these children, to give them lunch, to give them scholastic materials. We would be sent home. You're sent home for school fees, but there is no money at home. That is why we formed this school, San Martino Primary School, to be able to support children who could be going through the same situation. So whatever I do, it has a link to my background.
Love that. And man, I can tell you that I had a couple really important teachers in school that really shaped my future. And just hearing that those two girls
Yeah.
like were more important than they could ever realize.
Yes.
And I'm glad you never found them, because if you had, then maybe you'd have been like, great, I said thank you to them, and now I can move on. I'm so glad you didn't find them, so that you formed what a wonderful organization.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it is at this point that I would like to tell everyone who is watching and listening, you can never know how the amount of impact your help or support means to the person you've supported. And by the way, that is why sometimes I appreciate the donors. I feel I would like to appreciate them, but I can't get them. I can't see them.
Right.
Sometimes I appreciate and say, okay, this is how they feel. I should leave them. How I wish those girls would know that whatever I do is as a result of their support.
That's great. All right, so I got to doing a little research on your organization. I know in the beginning you started focusing on food security for them, but then at a certain point you started getting into other avenues: HIV prevention, vocational training. Was that just a natural progression? How did that change over time?
Now, development programs or projects are tricky. You sit and think that there is a problem or there is a challenge for someone. Yes, sustainable farming or farming is the backbone of our country, Uganda. But when we went to work with these households, we found that there were other challenges that were affecting these households. For example, in some of the households, the women were widows. They needed to start taking a medication. In some of the households, the women were widows, they were sick, the children were not going to school. So they needed to go to school. Some of these children were youth that would never enroll to a primary school or secondary school. And some of the children were primary school going children. So we decided to support a household holistically. And initially, HIV prevention, treatment, and control was on top in 2010. We needed to support these women, these households, the children, and the women to access treatment so that they are able to work. One of the things that really struck us as we sat in our meetings was the women would never go to the farms because the children are not at school. They are not happy. When a child has not eaten, when a child is not at school, these women will not go for farming. So if you want them to go for farming, first solve this problem, ensure the child is in school, and ensure that the child has food. So we decided to support the household holistically. And I would like to say that time came that we had a challenge of hypertension and diabetes. After these women enrolled for HIV treatment They started doing farming so well, but then at one time we got a challenge of hypertension, and we also went in for hypertension prevention, treatment, and control. So, in our development work, things keep evolving. Initially, mushroom growing was not a big thing, but as time goes on, farming land is limited, so you have to think about the resources that are available. So we keep changing. In most cases, after 5 years, we do a research of the households that we support, and this research informs what we should be doing and how best we should focus our activities. I'm sorry, I always took a lot.
No, these are great. I love it. All right, so let's go on. I have here Eco-Agric Uganda's mushroom farming project in partnership with the Mar Munning Trust has been one of your major undertakings. Could you walk us through how this project began and its overall impact on the local communities?
Thank you. Yes, it was not Morning Trust, it was the Vibrant Village Foundation and then the Morning Trust.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to say that the Vibrant Village Foundation is in the US.
Okay.
So here we are. Our very first grant was a trellis grant through the University of California, Davis. I will always applaud them because they saw us and picked us from nowhere. So after the University of California, Davis, we got a number of grants, and there came the Vibrant Village Foundation. I really appreciate you. So they came to support women in Wakiso district improve their living conditions through sustainable vegetable growing and vocational training. Now, under the vegetable growing activities, we had promoting urban farming and then mushroom growing. Here we are. We didn't know any mushroom growing. However, I had heard about mushroom growing while I was working with Hoima District Local Government. The First Lady, Honorable Janet Museveni, had sent a team to the districts to train people about mushroom growing. So they came and trained us as Hoima District Local Government officers, extension workers. So I attended that training, but it was very complicated. You need to wash your hands. You need to do this. You need to make sure there is sanitation. Things were complicated. I didn't pick interest. So now here I was. We were supposed to promote mushroom growing amongst the women. These were 200 women in Wakiso district. As any organization can do, we contracted someone, a consultant, to support us in mushroom growing. We didn't know anything about white oyster or oysters or anything. Then we also got a supplier to supply us with the items as any organization can do. Now we organized, we had a heap of substrate. Now when this consultant came, the consultant said, you know what? If these women are involved in growing button mushrooms, they are going to get a lot of profit and a lot of income. And that is my objective, or the objective of the project. My dear, the substrate was supplied, well sterilized. Excuse me. All the women were there. We got taplings put down. It was a very big heap of substrate. We sterilized for about 3 days. My goodness. Initially, I used to think that we got only 2 mushrooms, but it seems those 2 mushrooms were not real. After learning about mushroom growing, I realized those 2 mushrooms did not grow. Leave alone the failure, the embarrassment in front of the farmers. That embarrassment was big. I was so embarrassed. That time, I was working as the field officer. I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. So the management sat and the good thing, all of us were agriculturalists, and we decided no, we needed to find the places where they are growing mushrooms. We went and learned about white oyster mushroom growing, came and set up a demonstration at our organization about white oyster mushroom growing, and we started again bringing back the women, but they were totally demoralized. So we started growing the mushrooms, and they started doing well. It was really a nice story. And to make matters worse, there is no way you can tell a donor that something failed. So we never told the donor. We never told Vibrant Village Foundation. So fortunately, we were successful. As the program for the Vibrant Village Foundation was ending, we got another grant from Morning Foundation. This one is from, I think, UK. So Morning Foundation supported us, support mushroom growing in Wambo, in Wakiso district. And this time it was a walkover, and it was helping us perfect our mushroom growing. So this was smooth. The results were very okay. The results were good, and everything performed very well. Now, after that, the turning point was when the substrate got expensive. The substrate that was being used was cotton husks. Initially, cotton was everywhere, and the cotton husks that are used are got from Tanzania, not from Uganda. So cotton husks became expensive. We needed to start thinking of better ways of getting cotton husks. And this was like in 2019. Yeah, the Vibrant Village Foundation project was 2010. Then after 2010, we had the Man Morning project. When it ended, we kept on growing with other farmers. And then from there, we started finding alternative mushroom growing substrate. It is at this moment that I would like to appreciate everyone who has ever supported mushroom growing efforts with Eco-Agric Uganda through giving way, through the donor box. There are so many people I would like to appreciate, but one person called Welcome to Mushroom Hour saw me, picked me, saw all my videos and picked me and had a podcast. Is it called a podcast or something? So when I told people the story, what we were doing, people kept following, and then they started supporting us to grow mushrooms. Someone called Mike Tyson mushrooms is no longer called Mike Tyson mushrooms. He is called Mycomenta now. From Mike Tyson mushrooms, he changed to performance fungi, from performance fungi to Mycomenta. And I remember you also supported me. You also donated to my mushroom growing. So we started finding alternative substrate. I started getting trainings from different people, from Flash Crusher, from Ted Anderson, from Kristen Trunzo, Mycopreneur, so many, I can't mention all, but it was social media. So I started sharing, and people would advise. So I found alternative substrate. We started using coffee husks. We started using sawdust. We started using maize stalks. We started using maize cobs. We started using all materials around us. And then from there, we had a challenge of good quality spawn. The spawn we would procure was not good. Sometimes we would go get false mushrooms. And then I also learned how to collect spores, how to do to collect spores, to do liquid culture, and we started producing our own culture. And I would like to appreciate By the Fire, Vulcan Forged, who supported the construction of the mushroom growing house, where we have our lab, where we have a fridge, where we keep our culture, where we do everything. And now we have over 60,000 women that we have supported to learn to grow mushrooms. In brief, that is the story about our mushroom growing journey.
Man, 60,000. That is
Yes.
amazing. So, okay. So you're bringing a not native mushroom over to Uganda. You're teaching everybody how to grow them. How are they receptive to eating them? Once, like, what does that process look like? Are some people really like, oh, I don't know if I want to eat this mushroom, or are they on board going, yeah, let's give it a try?
They would like to give it a try because mushrooms is a big thing in Uganda. We have other mushrooms besides these ones.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, the white oyster is beautiful. No one wouldn't want to take something that's white. So people would like to try them. They are easy to cook. They cook quickly because they do not need a lot of firewood. They do not have cultural attachments. By the way, in central Uganda, there is a clan that is there to conserve the mushrooms. So the mushrooms are known. Everyone knows there is the Butiko clan, and mushrooms are commonly called Obutiko or Butuzi Runyoro. So they.
Hold on. Oh, I hit. Okay, I gotta. It hits like a maximum recording time, so I gotta restart that one again. So
Because there are clans that are there to protect the mushrooms. For example, the Butiko clan in Uganda, it's there to conserve the mushrooms. So, though it conserves a specific kind of mushrooms. Mushrooms have been medicinal and culturally important. They are used at important ceremonies, marriage ceremonies. I remember it was my mother who prepared the special dish for mushrooms when I was getting married culturally. They're important when people get twins. They are prepared when they're installing they said they call it hair, the person who inherits
oh yeah, the air. Yeah.
the heir. When they're installing the heir, they are really important in different cultural aspects. And there are those commonly known as Obutiko Obubala that are really important. By the way, do you know grip water? There is that water they give to children when they are crying so much, when they are still babies. So we also use it locally as grip water, as it helps. I've ever given it to my sons. So mushrooms have been important. Introducing the oyster mushrooms is not bad, except that initially, when they were being introduced, there were so many things attached, making it a little bit difficult to adopt. Now that we have